So, when you don't know how to do something, how to fix something, or how something works, what do? Ask a teacher? Ask your parents? Ask your friends? Ask someone you really know and trust? No! You go to the internet and ask some randos. But I'm not talking about creeps here, I hope. No, I mean the people of the internet! You know, those people who make how-to videos. Because chances are, if you're trying to figure out something, someone on the internet has already figured it out for you. Things like, how do I unsend a text? No. How do I do a winged eyeliner? How do I get rid of the zit by Friday night? How do I get out of gym class? How do I screen cap Snapchat without getting caught? They'll never know. But then there are things in life that don't have an easy fix, that don't have a simple solution, that don't have a how-to video. Things like what to do when you have problems with family, or when it seems like you have no control in your life, or what to do when someone has done something to you. I mean, clearly, they gotta go. The truth is, there's a lot of life that doesn't have a solution you can just find online. So how do you know what to do when you don't know what to do?
Do you ever feel like you live in two different worlds? There's your life in the actual world at school, with your friends, in the band, playing sports, and then there's your life at home. And although we probably wouldn't admit it, isn't it true that we are all way weirder at home? Here's what I mean. When I'm at home, I talk to myself quite a bit. I might sing to myself, I might have a conversation with myself, with somebody else, but just with myself. And when I'm out and about, I don't really do that. Yeah, if you've seen me do that, maybe, but probably not. I don't really do that outside of at home. Now, hold on before you judge me too much, because here's what I know for sure. You do it too. We all do it. In fact, there are a lot of ways that we do things at home that we would never act with our friends or at school or in public. Not only are we weirder at home, but most of us are a little more difficult at home. Think about it. You would never leave your nasty gym socks on the stairs at a friend's house, but you don't think twice about doing it at your own house. You would never talk to your coach the way you talk to your stepmom. You would never be as mean to a teammate as you are to your brother. And like me, you probably don't go off nearly as quickly on anybody outside your house as you do on the people inside your house. But how is this possible? More importantly, why is this? Why do we act in two completely different ways depending on where we are? There may be a lot of reasons for this, but I think one of the main reasons for me is I think of home like my world and everybody else is just living in it. You know what I mean? Maybe we don't say it out loud, but we walk in the door and we want to know if dinner is something that we like. We complain about going to our siblings' band concert because we have other plans. It is our world and we want it to be our way. But that's not nearly as true anywhere else. Most of us wouldn't go to a friend's house for dinner and say, "Ugh, I hate lasagna. Why did you make lasagna?" We would never tell our coach we aren't coming to the game because we had other plans already. Or at least we shouldn't. Even if we know we can get attitude with people at school, it's never to the level we go at home. For some of us, home feels like the only place it's safe to be the realest version of ourselves. The people we live with will, hopefully, still love us, even when we're ridiculous. But at the same time, we all tend to be not just the realest, but the worst version of ourselves. No matter what's happening, I ask myself this question: how does this affect me? I mean, think about it. Everything we say or do at home is in response to how that question is answered. How does this affect me? Well, maybe you would say, My family loves hamburgers, but I'm vegetarian. So what did they do? Go out for burgers after the game. And I'm over here trying not to puke eating the black bean version of this stuff. So I make a point to let everyone know how bad it is over and over. Or, I don't get to go out with my friends because I have to babysit. How does that affect me? Well, that isn't fair, so I'm going to give my parents attitude. How about this one? I studied so hard for my test while my sister scrolled TikTok all night, and she got a better grade than me. How does that affect me? Well, she doesn't even deserve an A, so obviously now I'm annoyed with her, and I am treating her that way. See, what I don't think a lot of us realize as we think about our lives at home is how much our response to the question, how does this affect me, changes the vibe in our house. As we respond to how things are affecting us, the people in our houses are responding to how we are affecting them. Then we respond to that, and most of us don't realize we're playing a key role in the general feeling in our house. Is this always true? No. But for some of us, we know we're at least a part of the cycle of tension and attitude where we live. The question is, what do you do about it? What do you do when things are tough at home? When the mood is off? When you know you're a part of the reason things are tense, but you have no idea what to do about it? Listen, you don't need to tell me that family is hard, but the good news in all of this is that the difficulty you face with your family isn't unique to you, and it's been going on for thousands of years. In fact, one of the things I love most about the true events in the Bible is how it gives us a real look at people who lived real lives with real problems. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to spend some time looking at the life of Joseph. Now, Joseph was one of the most famous people in the first half of history found in the Bible. He is a guy, just like us, who found himself in all kinds of situations where he didn't know what to do. Joseph's story is wild. It's like the most dramatic Netflix show that you have ever seen. There are murder plots. He's sold into slavery. He's unfairly put into jail. The story twists. It turns everywhere. The drama doesn't stop. And we will get to that in the next few weeks, but it all starts with the drama in his family. Let me give you some background. Joseph was one of 12 sons who all had Jacob as their dad. Jacob, okay? Now, Jacob's story was complicated. He fell in love with a woman named Rachel, but he was tricked into marrying Rachel's sister, Leah. But Jacob loved Rachel, so he worked for her father for 7 years so he could marry her too. Weird. If you're keeping count, that leaves Jacob with 2 wives, and they were sisters. And that sounds a lot like a show on TLC, but we'll not pay that any mind. There were 2 other women he never married, but who he had children with. And, plot twist, Rachel, the wife Jacob loved the most, couldn't have children. While all these other women gave him kids, Rachel couldn't until all of a sudden she was pregnant with Joseph. He was like the miracle baby. And Jacob, the dad, was crazy about him. That means, in this family with 1 father and 4 mothers, 12 sons, there was some tension. Because it was no secret who the favorites were. This is where we pick up in the life of Joseph. Now, in Genesis 37, we read about how Jacob made a special robe for Joseph, a physical reminder of how much more his dad loved him than the other brothers. And the other brothers despised him for it. At that time, robes were like the newest Jordans, a big deal. That wasn't the only issue. Joseph then had a series of dreams. It says this. He, Joseph, said to them, his brothers, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright. while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." Now, this wasn't your typical dream, and the brothers knew it. This dream wasn't about grain, it was about power, and Joseph was sending a message by sharing the dream. He was saying, "Hey guys, listen to this. I think, I know that I'm going to be more powerful than you one day. And when that day comes, you will all worship me." For a younger brother to say this to the older brothers, it wasn't going to fly. The passage goes on. His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of the dream and what he said. The vibe was harsh. Joseph's brothers were over his robes and dreams, and then Joseph had another dream involving the sun and moon and stars bowing down to him. It was the same message, but this time it included his parents bowing down as well. He tells his dad Jacob and his brothers, who now hate him even more. Not the best move. Can you imagine the tension in this family? One dad, 4 moms, a dozen boys, and now the favorite son who goes around telling people he's having visions of everyone bowing down to him? Why would he do that? But Joseph wasn't acting in a way that considered any of that. Joseph was behaving like all of us do in our families sometimes. Hyper aware of how we are being treated and not really aware of how it affects anybody else. And Joseph's family was the same way. All Joseph's brothers could see was how the whole situation affected them. The unfairness and the injustice. Joseph receiving the robe he did as a gift was like being given a brand new car when he was turning 16, while all the other brothers had to share mom's ancient minivan. It wasn't right, and they saw it. The truth is, even though these few verses are about more than some strange dreams and a coat, it is about how the tension in the family was never dealt with. The tension was left to grow, and we are still reading this story today for a reason. Why? To show us family has always been complicated. To teach us to pay attention to how our actions and even our situations affect the people that we live with. To remind us that tension left unresolved will never just go away. It will always escalate to something bigger. Next week, we'll see how the situation for Joseph escalated to a biblical dumpster fire kind of situation. But until then, what could everyone in the family have done differently? Well, Joseph could have started to see himself as part of the problem, as one person in a large family and not the center of it. Jacob, the dad, could have recognized how his favoritism was impacting everybody. The brothers could have chilled out a little bit on the grudges and the gossip about Joseph. Everybody could have ignored Joseph's dreams and not allowed their insecurity to control them. The point is this: Joseph's family drama isn't all that different than our own. Whether you're the favorite, maybe you're the angry one, the firstborn, the lastborn, what up to the lastborns, the quiet one, or the one with the gold medal and door slamming, the truth is the same. There is a role you play in your family. Pay attention to how your words and actions contribute to the tone and the temperature of the house. Are you improving it? Or are you making it more tense? Then, decide what you want your role to be from here on out. In other words, pay attention to how you affect your family. And then, choose how you'll treat them. If you aren't sure where to begin, take a look at this passage in the letter Paul wrote to the church at Philippi. In some ways, These people worked a lot like a family and were trying to figure out how to live together. So, in this letter, Paul writes this: "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And, being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross." Paul says, look, Jesus sets the example here. He gave up the privileges that came with being God. He deserved to be treated like God, but didn't require that of people. He chose to serve and have compassion on humans, even when they didn't deserve it at all. And Paul is reminding the Philippian church and us to be that very kind of person with those around us. So, $1,000,000 question, how do we do that when we don't know what to do at our house? We start by paying attention to how we see ourselves. Do we think or act like we're better than people in our house or in our family? Maybe. Is that accurate? Probably not. So, what would it look like to treat our siblings, our step-siblings, our cousins, or the adults in our house as equal or maybe even more important than ourselves? And finally, and maybe hardest of all, we need to invite someone else to speak into how we treat our family. Honestly, it's nearly impossible to see clearly the role we play in our family, but others around us can see it. And by asking them, they can help us see ourselves and our families with 20/20 vision. What up? In fact, asking someone older or wiser is one of the best things to do when we don't know what to do. This is why we have small groups, by the way. We all need people around us and people older than us, like a leader, who can know what's really going on in our family and help us figure out what to do with it when we don't know what to do. Imagine for a second if everybody in your family did this. What if everyone paid attention to how they affect everyone else? What would it do for our relationship with people that live at our house? What would it do for the general level of tension or peace at your house? What if it started with you? It could. Now, here's the deal. We're going to talk about this very thing, about our family dynamic, the way that we affect our family with our small groups. If you're watching this live, right after this ends, we're going to start jumping into our small groups. If you don't have the link for the small group, contact Lindsay on Facebook or Instagram or however you know how to contact her. She'll set you up with the link. We've got it for all age groups from junior high to high school. We'll see you there. Love you guys. Have a great week.